I want to tell you about an experiment I ran on myself. 30 days. One movement. Every single day. No gym, no equipment, no complicated program. Just one ancient, fundamental human position that most adults over 60 have almost completely lost, and a commitment to reclaim it. The movement is the deep squat. And before I tell you what happened, I need to tell you why I decided to try this in the first place, because the reason matters. I see patients in my practice every week, men and women in their 60s and 70s, who come to me with the same cluster of complaints. Hips that ache constantly, a lower back that never fully feels right, knees that protest every time they bend. And almost universally, they have accepted these symptoms as simply part of getting older. But here is what I have come to believe after decades in medicine. Most of what we attribute to aging is actually the consequence of one thing: sitting. The modern chair is, in a very real sense, a cast for your lower body. It holds your hips, ankles, and knees in a fixed, limited position for hours every day. Over months and years, your body adapts to this restriction. The hip flexors shorten, the ankle joints stiffen. The deep muscles of the hip lose their ability to function through a full range of motion. And when a body adapted to sitting tries to perform a deep squat, a position that every human being could naturally rest in as a child, it encounters what feels like a wall. That wall is not age. That wall is disuse. 30 days ago, I decided to start dismantling that wall. Today I am going to tell you exactly what happened, day by day, phase by phase, and what the science says about why. I want to be completely honest with you about day one. It was humbling. I lowered myself toward a deep squat, and my body immediately told me, through a very clear language of tightness, discomfort, and instability, that it did not recognize this position as safe. My ankles could not achieve the range of flexion required to keep my heels on the floor. My hip flexors pulled taut long before I reached a comfortable depth. My lower back, unaccustomed to this particular pattern of loading, sent signals of protest. This reaction is not unusual. It is not a sign of damage or disease. It is a neurological response, your nervous system identifying a range of motion it no longer recognizes as familiar and sending a threat signal to protect you from it. The discomfort of day one is the sound of disuse, not injury. I used two modifications from the very beginning, and I want to be clear that these are not optional for most people starting out. They are essential. First, I elevated my heels. A small rolled towel placed under my heels reduced the demand on my ankle dorsiflexion, the forward bend of the ankle, which is almost universally restricted in adults who have spent years in chairs and shoes. This single modification allowed me to sit significantly deeper without my ankles becoming the limiting factor. Second, I held a support, a sturdy countertop edge. This allowed me to control precisely how much of my body weight was loading my knees and hips at any given moment. I could explore the position gradually, going only as deep as was comfortable without fear of losing my balance or overloading unprepared tissue. My goal for day one was not duration, it was accumulation. Several 30-second holds spread throughout the day, a total of perhaps 3 to 4 minutes. That was enough. I was not trying to master the squat on day one. I was reintroducing myself to it. By day two, the soreness had arrived. My inner thighs, my hip flexors, the muscles around my ankles, all of them informing me loudly that they had been asked to do something unfamiliar. This is the phase where most people stop, and I understand why. When your body hurts after doing something, the natural conclusion is that the thing caused harm. But there is a critical distinction that every person attempting this needs to understand: the difference between muscle soreness and joint pain. Muscle soreness is diffuse, dull, and achy. It typically develops 12 to 24 hours after the activity, peaks around 48 hours, and then gradually resolves. It is a sign of adaptation, your muscle fibers responding to a new stimulus by repairing and rebuilding slightly stronger than before. Joint pain is different. It is sharper, more localized, often felt directly within the joint rather than in the surrounding muscle. It may be accompanied by swelling, warmth, or a catching sensation. This is a stop signal. If you experience true joint pain during or after squatting, you stop, you rest, and if it persists, you consult a professional. During days 2 and 3, I continued with the same modifications. I increased my total accumulated time slightly, perhaps 5 to 6 minutes across the entire day, broken into short holds. I began integrating the squat into daily moments. While waiting for my morning tea, while reading, during television commercials, I had begun what physiologists call movement snacking, frequent, brief exposures to the movement rather than one long session. This approach is far more effective for joint health than infrequent longer sessions because cartilage, which has no direct blood supply, receives its nutrients through the mechanical compression and release of movement. Frequent movement means frequent nutrition for your joints. By the end of the first week, something had changed. Not dramatically, not overnight, but there was a perceptible shift. The position that had felt foreign and uncomfortable on day 1 had begun to feel not quite natural yet, but less threatening. I noticed I needed my heel support less. My hold duration had naturally extended without effort. The range of motion that had felt like a wall was beginning to feel more like a door. This shift is not mysterious. It is the nervous system doing what the nervous system is designed to do, adapting to repeated safe exposure. On day 1, my nervous system had identified the deep squat as an unfamiliar, potentially dangerous position and had responded with protective tightness and discomfort. By day 7, repeated exposure had begun to change that assessment. The nervous system was learning, through direct repeated experience, that this position was safe. And as that threat response gradually dialed down, the tightness began to release. The hip flexors, which had been holding on fiercely, were beginning to accept the new length being asked of them. The ankles were beginning to find more range. The deep muscles of the hip were beginning to engage in patterns they had not used in years. I also noticed something unexpected. I was beginning to prefer squatting over sitting in certain situations. This sounds strange, but it reflects something real. The body has a preference for positions where its joints are actively loaded and lubricated over positions where they are compressed and static. By the end of the second week, I had set a new daily target: accumulate 30 minutes of squat time throughout the day. I want to be very clear about what this means and what it does not mean. 30 minutes of squat time does not mean one continuous 30-minute hold. That would be an extraordinary athletic feat, completely inappropriate and unnecessary for this purpose. 30 minutes means 30 one-minute holds scattered through the day, or 60 30-second holds, or any combination that accumulates the total. This is the key principle: frequency and accumulation over duration and intensity. Your joints benefit most from frequent, low-load movement. Your nervous system adapts most effectively to consistent, repeated exposure. Long, infrequent sessions of any challenging movement are far less therapeutic than many short, frequent ones. I had also begun replacing habitual movements with squat variations. When something fell on the floor, I squatted to pick it up rather than bending at the waist. When I was waiting for something in the kitchen, I would drop into a supported squat. These micro moments of squatting were adding up, and they were accelerating the adaptation. At the 30-day mark, I conducted an honest assessment. My hip flexibility had changed noticeably. Movements that had previously required conscious effort, crossing one leg over the other, sitting on the floor, rotating to look behind me, felt genuinely easier. My lower back, which had carried a background level of stiffness for years, was quieter. Not entirely resolved, but meaningfully improved. The deep squat position brings the lumbar spine into gentle flexion, which for people with facet joint stiffness or mild spinal stenosis can provide real relief, a gentle self-applied decompression. My ankles had regained range of motion I had not noticed was missing. And perhaps most significantly, the morning stiffness that had become such a predictable feature of waking up had reduced substantially. The joints that had been receiving inadequate movement throughout each day were now being consistently nourished. But I must also tell you what did not change, because honesty matters more than inspiration. The deep squat did not resolve every issue. It did not eliminate pain that had structural causes. It is not appropriate for everyone. If you have had a recent hip or knee replacement, you must clear this movement with your surgeon before attempting it. If you have severe bone-on-bone osteoarthritis, a supported partial squat may be helpful, but a full deep squat may not be appropriate for you. If you have an acute disc herniation in your lower back, the lumbar flexion involved in a deep squat could worsen your symptoms significantly. This movement is a powerful tool. Like all powerful tools, it must be used with knowledge and respect. If you want to try this yourself, here is where to start. Day 1. 2 to 3 supported holds of 30 seconds each, heels elevated on a rolled towel, hands on a counter. Total time, approximately 2 minutes. That is enough. Week 1. Gradually increase the number of holds per day. Keep using your supports. Focus on accumulating time, not achieving depth. Week 2 onward. Begin reducing your reliance on the heel elevation as your ankle flexibility permits. Begin reducing your grip on the support as your balance improves. Add squat moments to your daily routine, during routine tasks, during television, during moments of waiting. The only rule that matters: never push through true joint pain. Muscle fatigue and the gentle discomfort of unfamiliar range of motion are acceptable. Sharp, localized joint pain is not. 30 days. One movement. What I found was not a miracle. Miracles do not exist in medicine. What I found was the result of giving my body consistent, appropriate movement in a pattern it had been deprived of for years. The chair is comfortable, but comfort over decades has a cost. If your hips ache, if your back never quite feels right, if your knees protest more than they used to, before you accept these things as the inevitable price of your age, I would ask you to consider a different possibility. What if the problem is not how old you are? What if the problem is simply how long you have been sitting? Start with 30 seconds. Use your supports. Be patient. Your body remembers this position. It just needs time to find it again.